What is up, my dashing dudes and darling dames? I am the Hans TV, and welcome back to the only subreddit you turn to when regular revenge just isn't enough anymore. It's r/ProRevenge. Our first post for today comes from a throwaway account. My ex cheated on me and falsely accused me, so I exposed her to everyone she knew. In late May of 2016, I asked my crush, who's known as Kate, of 3 years out on a coffee date. 3 days later, we made things official. For the next 7 months, our relationship felt too good to be true. We clicked on so many interests, so we hardly ever disagreed on anything. We were very open with each other, which led to an incredible passionate hugging life. We both had good jobs, so we had money to spoil one another, and our families were both enthusiastic about our relationship. In January 2017, I was accepted into my country's Armed Forces Reserve program as a combat engineer. I underwent basic training from February to late April, and was up until then the hardest thing I have ever done. There were several times I thought I wouldn't graduate, and the only thing that kept me going were Kate's words of encouragement over texts and calls. She was there when I received my BTC certificate, and never let me forget how proud she was of me. As part of my job in the reserves, I would have to go away in the summer for advanced training, between early June to late August. Kate fully supported me going 400 kilometers away to the training center and spending almost our entire summer break on work to further my military career. The summer was brutal on me. I was a social outcast from every clique that formed on our course, and was the butt of several jokes. My self-esteem plummeted through the floor, but Kate's belief in me was what made me prevail. I passed as 5th best on the course, and I owed it all to her. The decline. Things between us started to sour after returning home. According to her, I wasn't as spontaneous and outgoing as before I went away. I was dismissive, took small jobs and jokes as personal insults, and would rather stay in, watch movies, and have passionate hugging instead of going out. Unbeknownst to both of us, I had developed some nasty social anxiety due to the events of the summer, and it started affecting our relationship. Nearing our 2-year anniversary in 2018, we got into a heated argument over a small misunderstanding and subsequently broke up. I was incredibly distraught before she texted me 3 days later and said she wanted to try and fix things. I didn't see her for 3 weeks, but we kept in touch every day, slowly mending things. When we officially got back together, nothing felt the same. Every time I talked with her, it was as if I was walking on eggshells, and it only worsened with my anxiety, which in turn hurt our already damaged relationship. Then, things finally came to a head at the end of July. The hurt. While in school, Kate had met a dude named John. She saw in John what she used to see in me, and they quickly became very close friends. He consoled her through our breakup and every little time I messed up afterwards. For the record, I knew of John, but never thought Kate would ever do anything with him. One night after work, we had planned for me to stay the night at Kate's place. I arrived to see the two of them chilling on the living room couch. Kate said that John had dropped by for a spontaneous visit and he was just leaving. After John left, she became cold and distant. I slowly accepted that our relationship was dead and asked her how things were between us. She echoed my thoughts and we agreed to break up the next day. She said I could stay the night one last time, seeing how it was late and she was still worryful of me. From there on until she fell asleep, Kate became uncharacteristically glued to and protective of her phone. In the past, she wouldn't care if I had glanced over to catch her and her friends texting about whatever, but now she did her best to hide the screen from me. I asked her about it and she said it was private stuff, which only raised more questions. After she fell asleep, curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked her phone, I knew her passcode, and found hundreds of messages between her and John. Messages about how she was now single, how exciting it was that they could now be a couple in public, and laughing at me about every little thing I did. I quietly sobbed as I read through each hurtful text. My crying wasn't as quiet as I thought. Kate stirred, and once she realized what I was doing, she threw a fit. I couldn't find the anger or words to combat her, so I just grabbed my stuff and left, with Kate shouting and yelling at me the whole time. It was late in the morning when I got home. I just broke down and ugly cried all night. I called in sick from work the next day and spent it sulking in my bed. The day after, I got several angry texts from Kate's friends and family. In a bid to save her image and denounce anything I might say about her, she told anyone she knew that I had forced myself upon her that night in one last attempt to get some before we broke up, and left after the deed was done. Though what I had done was scarring, she refused to press charges because she didn't want to make a circus of her life in court, and was the bigger person by doing so. I spent the next few months in fear that her allegation would have me discharged from the army and my image forever tarnished, but nothing ever happened. The revenge. 5 months afterwards, Kate DM'd me. After pleasantries, she's basically apologized for the whole thing and actually admitted to faking it, though she would never publicly admit it to save her own reputation. My image be damned. This angered me, but I kept cool. I screenshot the text and continued talking with her. Over the next 3 months, she entered into a cycle of events as follows. She complained about a current life situation, usually about John screwing up in the relationship in one way or another, and asking for advice. Lamenting our relationship, how I never screwed up like John did, how she wished we could go back to the way things were, blah blah blah. Ignoring me because John finally pulled his head out of his butt, did some huge romantic gesture, and saved their relationship. Going on a smear campaign on social media about our relationship, employing her friends for help, knowing in full that I would see it all, and trying to bait me into an argument. It would work. She would try and turn the argument around and paint me as the bad guy, and then block me for about a month before repeating the cycle. This happened 3 times like clockwork, and always left me burnout and broken, but a part of me wanted it to happen. Each time it did, I took screenshots of every damning thing she said. I had an SD card full of everything I compiled before I finally decided it was time, making several picture copies of the worst text messages I caught. I bought several manila envelopes and mailed them to everyone I thought would matter to Kate. Her parents, grandparents, extended family she was super close with, best friends, her work boss, co-workers, teachers, whoever I could find a mailing address for. I made sure that anyone getting the envelope would know that these texts were between me and Kate and sent them off. Within 3 weeks, I got results. Some of the people who messaged me to shame and insult me before were now apologizing for their words. My favorite was from her own parents, who went on to say that they were deeply sorry about their daughter's behavior, how they raised her to do better than how she acted, and to please not pursue any legal actions. The thought had crossed my mind, but I didn't have the money nor the mental fortitude to fight a legal battle. I told them I'd think about it and that they'd be the first to know besides Kate if I did. Kate sent me some texts as well with things like, "How could you betray my trust like that?" Or, "You ruined my life, you bastard." I didn't reply. I just read every angry text that flew in with a satisfied grin and then blocked her when they stopped. I never fully found out how badly her life was affected by my revenge, but I do know that she dropped out of a school and no longer has a job. I hope John was worth it. How could you ruin my reputation like that? Didn't you falsely accuse him of something that can destroy his life? So, yeah, an eye for an eye, as they say. This next post comes from Vast Seaworthiness. Dine and Dash Diva gets what she deserves. My group of friends have been together for quite some time, at least starting from the end of middle school. The majority of us ended up going to the same college, so good for us. Anyway, one of our friends has been acting unreasonable and starting drama for fun. It's been slowly building up for about a year. Now, gossip and rumors we can deal with because we know each other and we can usually pick the truth from the lies easily. At the point of her rumor spreading, we distance ourselves from her quite a bit. Her latest antics have been much different. For the sake of this story, her name can be D. In our area, cases have been low, so we've started going out more with the whole gang. Extra precautions aside, things look to be normal. We eat a semi-formal restaurant, as is our custom. Something about dressing up and treating ourselves is something we try to do as much as we can financially permit. Things seem fine until the bill comes and it's time for each of us to settle up. D starts to get shifty and starts tapping at her phone. She stands up quickly and says she needs to go. It's an emergency. She fast walks out of the dining room and out of sight. We try to text and call after, but no answer. We end up all absorbing her part of the bill. A one-time favor for a friend in need, right? The second part of our routine is to go to the host's house, where we drink, watch movies, and have a good time. Kelly was to be the host this time. We're not much for gossip, but Dee's odd behavior mixed with her previous antics got us on the topic. All 6 of us shared some stories, and it looks like every one of us had some personal run with our friend. The second time we go out to dinner, everything seems well. Dee ordered a lot of mixed drinks and seemed thoroughly tipsy. Foolishly, we believed that she would pay her tab this time. Before the waiter could even bring up how we wanted to split the bill, Dee excused herself to the bathroom and did not return. We all have jobs, along with scholarships, so thankfully money isn't our primary worry. However, last time's bill paired with Dee's inflated dinner and alcohol tab would set us collectively back about $300. Reluctantly, we paid. Although we didn't see her, it was assumed that she drove home drunk. We rendezvoused to the host place, very annoyed and in no mood to party. Again, Dee refuses our calls and does not open our messages. We busy ourselves by trying to get in touch with some of Dee's other friends. Through the mismatch of conversation, it is revealed that Dee was receiving a stipend from her father that she was saving to buy herself a new Tesla. Not only did she have a job, but she was getting free money from her dad. There was no reason for her to not pay her bills. I guess she thought this way she could get her Tesla faster. We had collectively been fed up with her stuff. Since all of us felt burned, we decided to plan some revenge. We knew she had the cash, she just didn't feel obliged to hold her weight. At this point, we were all waking up to how entitled she could be. Our sense of loyalty and nostalgia had blinded us for way too long. Today was the day. We decided to go to a very nice restaurant today, about twice the price of what we would normally do. Dee looked so excited. Bless her. We all ate, drank, and had a great time. Dee had ordered many drinks and was again drunk. We were careful not to wait too long or else Dee would dash. So just as dessert was over and the prospect of after dinner coffee was being thrown around, we all declared that we had a surprise for Dee. Next month is her birthday, so we thought it would be reasonable enough time to use it as an excuse for her to close her eyes. Dee did as she was told and was instructed not to open her eyes until we said so, because the gift takes a minute to set up. We all got up, quietly filed out of the restaurant, and left her there with her eyes closed. Just as we were pulling out of the parking space, we all took one car to save time after our escape. Dee took her own car as usual. We saw Dee running out of the doors searching wildly for us. She got out of the car just as we rolled away, middle fingers arise. Our phones were blowing up like crazy. Tons of vile messages following the calls. I got to thinking, the bill must have totaled around $700-ish for everyone. We would have never picked this place normally, although the food was very good. The rest of the gang headed to my apartment. About 30 minutes later, we each received a message saying we owed her $738.17, along with a photo of the bill. She had the audacity to include her part of the bill in that amount as well, and judging by the receipt, she gave no tip. Classy. I replied with this message: guess you'll have to dip into your Tesla fund. Take an Uber home before you lose your scholarship and your friend's boozer. We know you can afford it. To say that she is crazy is an understatement. She tore us a new one on Twitter, blocked us, then unblocked us to rip us some more, and then blocked us again. Now Kelly, who has an alt Snapchat account, is treating us to her near psychotic rants talking about how fake whores who never did anything for her. I guess that's us. Maybe next time she'll learn to pay for herself like an adult. OP, you should have told her dad what she was doing. I mean, he is giving her that stipend, so maybe if you tell him, he'll take it away. Our final post for today comes from Infinite Number. Try to scam me out of rent money? Have fun paying back 6 times the amount, losing all your friends and getting exposed for your lies. Obligatory, not sure if this qualifies as pro, but it is definitely a step above pretty. The ultimate result did give me immense satisfaction to see this girl try to scam me, fail terribly, and have to face financial, social, and legal consequences. TLDR at the end, since this is a long one, and this happened to me last year. On my university Facebook page, I found a posting for a sublease offer by a girl named Wendy. She was transferring out of the university and needed her room rented out. It was an individual lease, so I wouldn't have to worry about damages in the shared space. I had my own deadbolt and key fob for my door, and the shared bathroom was huge, so I didn't even care if it stayed messy. I met the other roommates, we hit it off, and within a week I had signed the sublease. I learned my lesson from my previous renting situations and made sure to only sign a semester sublease with Wendy. I explained to her that I didn't want to be stuck in another lease and waiting for it to expire if my new roommates and I were not compatible. I also didn't want to lease during the summer when I didn't have plans to live on campus. She was fine with this, as no one else was willing to pay her the full amount of monthly rent. A semester went by and my roommates were nice, so I didn't think twice about extending my sublease until the end of May. School would be over by May 5th, and I already had a new apartment near my internship lined up for June 1st. I told all this to Wendy 4 months in advance, so she would have plenty of time to find someone to move into my room for the summer. Since I signed my lease extension, I had noticed that the quality of living in my complex had tanked to new lows. If you've never lived in a student apartment complex, they're pretty much run like dorms, though they are marginally cheaper and have more privacy with individual rooms. The past few months, I noticed that none of the public toilets in the gym or study floors were being cleaned. The security guard would let random drunk people use the facilities inside. None of the lights on a floor of the parking lot garage worked. There would be alcohol and vomit for days in the hallways, and the trash chutes were constantly jammed and overflowing, causing my entire floor to reek of garbage. We also had frequent plumbing and heating issues. Management seemed to do the bare minimum at their own pace to fix these problems. This would all come back later. So, in December, I paid $5,500 plus fees for rent, utilities, service for December to May. Note, I paid for the upcoming semester along with my last month's rent before my initial lease expired. Not smart, but I had cleaned out my entire savings to do this, so I didn't have to worry about late payments, e-check fees, or scrambling to pay rent at the end of each month. I worked a minimum wage tip-based job, and there were so many stupid fees just for paying rent that were eating up my paychecks, and cash was not allowed. Ultimately, I realized it was cheaper to prepay the rent and just live paycheck to paycheck for my food costs. Since this was a student building, the rent portal worked on credits and would just subtract monthly from any prepaid direct deposit. We also had a utility cap, so I never had to worry about any more payments. Now for the part where Wendy effed up. May rolls around and I double check with Wendy that I am moving back home right after the finals, May 4th, and the new tenant can move in starting June 1st since I paid until the end of May. I told her that if anyone wants to move in earlier than June 1st, to contact me because I didn't want to return my keys yet, and it would be nice to get some money back for the empty apartment I'm paying for. She agreed to this. All my things were moved out except for sheets and a single pillow, just in case I wanted to visit my friends or work an extra shift in May. Wendy calls me the day after I move and cries about how she cannot find anyone to take over the rest of the lease and if I could extend it into the summer. She has another apartment signed at her new school and cannot afford the rent for both. I tell her I'm in the same situation with my new apartment, so I can't afford to rent an empty room either. At the end of the day, her name is on the lease and not mine. She does not take this well. May 15th, I get a $1,000 charge on my account from the rental company for June rent, and for losing my keys and a noise complaint violation fee. I call management right away because no one was supposed to be home, and realize it is not the lady who's been working there the past 9 months, but someone completely different. As it turns out, older management knew they were being replaced since a national rental company bought the building, so they completely gave up on any upkeep during the months that were being phased out. They hadn't even filed my sublease contract from December, for which I had paid a hefty contract filing fee because Wendy never bothered to sign it. She just ignored the email they sent requesting her electronic signature, and management was too lazy to look into it because I prepaid for the semester and they never had to bother Wendy for any late payments. New management just assumed I was the original leaser or a relative of Wendy since my account was linked to the unit's rented portal. On top of the old management's fuck up, Wendy knew about the lack of proper sublease contract and used it to her advantage. She offered a new sublease discounted rent to move in for the summer. Wendy essentially charged me 2 months rent for 4 months of living, but was only able to do so since I had paid for the free month she was offering to her subleaser, and my damage deposit covered the last month's rent. She was actually gaining an extra $700 out of the deal, on top of having her rent fully covered for the last 4 months of her lease. She had a new sublease drafted by her ever clueless new manager and set the start date as May 6th, overlapping my contract with ended on May 31st. To explain the lack of return keys, Wendy also called management and said that she had lost her keys during moving, and just to charge her portal for the replacement when the sublease moved in. She assumed that this charge would be revoked when I returned my keys and the unpaid rent for the last month would be subtracted from my damage deposit, so I'd be none the wiser. She did not think that I would still be checking my rent portal occasionally after I moved out. This meant that from the very next day I moved out, someone had been living in my room which I paid for, without my knowledge or the knowledge of any of my other roommates who had gone on summer vacation. I was livid, but I still tried to patch things up between us. I offered to schedule an appointment at our local tenants union for mediation, and I even offered to just have her family talk to mine in case there were other personal issues that prevented Wendy from paying. She wrote me back a nasty email from her lawyer saying that she had a saved Snapchat of my roommates, her friends since high school, smoking pot and drinking during my birthday party in the apartment, and she wouldn't hesitate to send it to my boss, academic advisor, and the building manager. Pot is legal. I was 22, I had just passed a drug test for my internship, and I was not even present in the picture she had. So I'm not sure what she would have accomplished through this other than ratting out her own friends or incurring a smoking fine on her own lease. Plus, I'm not aware of any lawyer who would threaten blackmail and send it through their client's personal email address. She also said she needed the extra money for damages and cleaning, stating the pillow I left in the room as evidence as a lack of cleaning. Well, all of the cleaning fees would have been avoided if she told me someone was moving in. Blackmailing me into giving up a full month's rent to throw away a mere pillow and a blanket I left because I was still paying for the room? Nuclear option it would have to be. I contacted the university's free legal services and had them explain the process and required papers and documents I would need to give her in civil court. Since she was no longer a student, I was able to receive help without any conflict of interest under their student tenant issues advisor. The legal counselor suggested I try to pursue a court-operated mediation for the issue and follow with a civil suit if the mediation didn't work. They referred me to a local lawyer who does this sort of work pro bono to prevent companies from taking advantage of inexperienced students, who gladly helped me. At this point, I had received enough rude emails from her brother and boyfriend calling me a junkie and a scammer for trying to extort money from Wendy, their pure angel. I sent the court mediation paperwork straight to her family's home address just to expose her to everyone who she said told that I was just a crazy drug addict trying to steal her money. Then, I took her nasty email and forwarded it to every person included in the picture that she was trying to hold over me. I simply believed they deserved to know that their friend didn't care about any possible fallout they might experience and was using their post/image to blackmail someone. Finally, I spoke to the new management about the missing contract I had paid extra money to file. New manager admitted she was too overwhelmed by the massive pile of garbage the building had become to do her due diligence, and did have to concede that she made a mistake once she saw my saved copy of the lease extension. But she could not evict the new tenant, since it was my sublease extension that was invalid without Wendy's signature. I had new manager send me the new tenant's contract and forwarded the overlapping leases and the utility overage receipts since January to the accounting/fraud department of the management company and new manager's boss, who was in charge of making sure that the transition between management was smooth. I made sure to hammer in the fact that had anything gone wrong since December, I could have been evicted for illegal subletting after the company had accepted payment. Just because Wendy didn't feel like signing a contract and no one bothered to follow up on this. Within a day, I had not only received a $700 refund meant for May, but over 7 times more. The company wanted to wash its hands of any liability in this mess they inadvertently helped orchestrate, so they just reverted the direct deposit, which included the overlapping month in question. But that payment had been made in December, so I got back 6 months of rent, utilities, deposit, and fees. I essentially got a semester's worth of rent, plus December. As the original leaser to the unit, Wendy was now liable for all 7 months of payment, including the deposit, since my living situation there could only legally be classified by the building as an unauthorized verbal contract. If Wendy had agreed to mediation at the tenant union, or even just through local court, we would have only disputed $700 and likely a significant portion of it would have been eaten up through court fees or paying the mediator. I waited for a while after my payout to really make her sweat from the pressure of the court requesting her presence, and the building manager requesting $6,000 in unpaid rent. I knew the building manager was leaving her and her parents' voicemails daily about needing to call her back to fix the situation before it got worse, but they were all avoiding calls at this point. Eventually, her family had to hire a real lawyer to get back to me about revisiting an out-of-court mediation. Finally, I sent her a saccharine email explaining that I was willing to cancel the upcoming mediation request at the local courthouse, but only because I got back what I wanted and more. I told her that if she, her family, her pretend lawyer, or her real lawyer wanted to call me and settle my rent, I would be happy to pay for the time I lived there, and she could handle the rest on her own like she would have done in the first place. I think her family was too embarrassed to even ask for rent from December to May and couldn't deny their daughter had been lying this whole time, especially since they had to pay for a lawyer on top of everything else to clean up her mess. They never requested that I pay them back at all, and I have not heard or seen her since. None of her friends from my school are friendly with her anymore, and their families are not on cordial terms, since the email I forwarded to her friends spread like wildfire. I'm not sure about the financial fallout of this on her end. According to the local rumor mill, her upper middle class parents bailed their darling princess out of it, and the building absorbed the loss on utilities and fees for its own mistakes. But I'm sure she won't be trying to scam anyone else for a while. As someone who is living at student campus stuff, it's not that bad here, but I do know that there are places that are horrifyingly bad. As for this, Wendy was an absolute grunt. A thunder grunt, if you will. Well, alright my dashing dudes and darling dames, that is going to do it for today's episode of r/ProRevenge. I hope you liked the stories, and if you did, I'm going to link them in the description as always. And if you liked the video, subscribe, share, drop a like, and a comment down below with what you'd like to see me read next. I know this one was a bit longer than normal, but I really wanted to put some work into this because I really like these stories. But with that being said, I will see you in the next video.